Hi class, hope you're having a great week. Welcome to the final lecture of week 5 in Counseling 120. So as you know, we've wrapped up with the catalog. Great job getting through that. I think you have a really good understanding now of the college policies, the degrees, the programs, the certificates, all your different options that you have. So that's going to be a really terrific tool. If this is your first semester, you're going to want to hang on to that catalog because you hold catalog rights for it, right? So what we're going to talk about today, as promised in the transition, is really talking about the schedule of classes, web schedule, then we'll get more into educational goals, which we touched on as we were going through the catalog. So the schedule of classes is something that is a little bit different than you'll find the catalog being. You know, first off, if you find an actual paper schedule of classes, you'll see it's much more thin than a catalog would be. I know they don't print catalogs as often anymore, but not quite as in-depth. The other thing you'll find is that actually schedules of classes are printed each semester, right? For each semester that we have, and we have fall, spring, and summer. The catalog, it's only printed once a year, and of course there are the addendums that the catalog have. So the reason that the class schedule is thinner too is because in recent years, actually in the college, they've kind of eliminated some of the details and left those in the catalog. And they've gotten really specific in the schedule of classes. So, for example, now you'll find really course listings under the subjects, the unit total, transferability, who the teacher, the instructor is, a little bit of information on student services and parking. Maybe here and there you'll see student success stories or exciting stories related to the college. But really now they keep it pretty lean. But what's you've got to think about is what are some of the differences. So we'll have a discussion on Canvas pretty soon here to talk about some distinctions and differences. And I've talked a little bit about them. But get ready to think about these things. What are the strengths and limitations of the schedule versus the catalog? Which one is more up to date in your opinion? What are the differences? I think a lot of times when you see folks on campus, they'll say, hey, can I have a catalog? Can I have a catalog? And there's a lot of terminology that is used in college, but for the purposes of navigating college and becoming a master student at CSM or in the district, really understanding that there is a difference between that schedule and the catalog, and they're both great tools that you can use. Okay, one thing that's really exciting is web schedule, and speaking of tools, this is a really wonderful and fantastic tool. Because the printed schedule is printed, it does have some limitations, so it's out of date as soon as it's printed. As you well know. Web schedule is updated pretty regularly, especially before classes are starting. So you can really count on it to be much more accurate than the printed schedule. I know a lot of us may like having that class schedule in our hand, but again, room changes, instructor changes, class cancellations, new classes that are added. Web schedule is going to have it, right? But web schedule isn't perfect, right? Once school starts, I know early on, what was tricky for students is a lot of classes would say in progress, right? And how do you know if you can get in? Well, one thing that we're going to do today is let you know how to navigate web schedule, especially if you're trying to add or look for classes once school has started. So this is web schedule. A lot of great features here. You can search a course like Counseling 120, and you can actually narrow things down in here. And you can see, look at all these great options of Counseling 120 and the different instructors that are teaching it, right? When a class hasn't started yet, you can see wait lists, for example, and see, okay, there are 3 students on this wait list. I might be able to get on the wait list for this class that starts in October, right? Some other great features that Web Schedule has are you can navigate it by college. You also have the option to look for specific types of classes. So, for example, if online classes work really well for you because you have a packed day with work or with sports or with your family, your kids, you can say, hey, I just want to look for some online options to add. Or if you're looking for evening classes because you work during the day, or want to see if there are any off-campus classes that are available, you can narrow it down that way too. You want to take classes on specific days of the week, you can search that as well. So it's a really great tool. Now, we talked earlier about what happens once school starts for finding classes, right? Well, other than searching in the keywords up here, you can actually look down below the search box, and on a daily basis, the instruction office at all 3 of the colleges, they print out reports of classes that are open and available for students to add. And so now we're 5 weeks in. It might be tough to find some classes, but let's see what we have available. All right, so again, you can see today is Friday the 13th, and this was printed earlier this morning, but there's about 2 pages of classes that are still available where students can add this semester. A lot of combinations from weekend courses to evening late start courses, online classes. So just remember that this is a tool that you can use once school starts. So obviously, the further into the semester you go, the shorter this list will be. But early on in the semester, this is a much longer list. So if you're ever looking for alternative classes or trying to add things, once the semester starts, this is another good tool when Web Schedule doesn't tell you and just says in progress, for example. Another cool feature that we'll talk about in this lecture today is archives of schedules and catalogs. This can be really useful for you for a lot of reasons, but just want to show you how you can access these archives. For example, you can check out the summer schedule from last summer. You can also check out the schedule archive to see what they offered last spring to give you a heads up on what may be offered this coming spring, because it's September now, and the spring 2020 schedule, it's actually not going to be available till October. So if you want to kind of get an idea of what was traditionally offered, you can take a look at some of these archives. We talked about catalog rights. Well, what's fantastic is, of course, you can find this year's catalog, but you can also look up archives. So if you started at CSM this year, you would be using the 1920 catalog for your catalog rights. But if you started last year or the year before or 4 years ago, you can actually access those catalogs through the catalog archive. So what you see here is just a little summary of what I just talked about. The archive schedules and catalogs, again, gives you an idea of what was offered in the past. You can download a file of the catalog you have catalog rights for. So it's a really fantastic tool. Okay, at this point we're going to transition and we'll talk about educational goals. So Something that I like to use to remember it is a mnemonic device. So I go CAT, right? Certificate, Associate's Degree, and Transfer. We love our lifelong learners and folks who come to CSM to take classes for personal enrichment and fun. But a majority of our students are looking to achieve one or all of these things at the college. So we'll talk about those. A certificate is very specific in terms of what you're studying. So when you are pursuing a certificate, it's really going to be focused on a particular subject area. For example, perhaps you're looking into a certificate in cosmetology. If you're going specifically for a certificate as your goal, all of your classes will be cosmetology related or under cosmetology for the most part. That's different than a degree in cosmetology, right? And we'll talk about that in a second. But other examples are the electronics technology program. You can also earn certificates in dental assisting. So again, focus specific on the subject. So there's two types of certificates: certificates of achievement and certificates of specialization. The certificate of achievement is the higher level. It's more units. It's awarded after completing 18 or more units. And this is something that will appear on your transcript. So that's really nice when applying for jobs as well. The specialization certificate is completion of specific courses within a subject field, usually less than 18 units. You can finish these a lot faster, whereas the certificate of achievement might be a year to 2 years. This certificate of specialization can be done pretty quickly, and it prepares you for work and getting started in some entry-level positions. This doesn't appear on the transcript. Associate's degrees, associate's degrees are based on the completion of 60 units of lower division college coursework. It's a combination of classes. And you can see how this is different from a certificate, where the certificate is all classes in the major. Well, the associate's degree also includes general education as well as electives. Okay, and there's a minimum of 18 units that must be taken in the major. Something that's really exciting that we have in the community colleges now are the associate transfer degrees.